Hi, this lecture is about the process message. And in this lecture, we are going to go over the three phases of production. We'll also explain what brainstorming and clustering is, how you nurture the idea of what your production is going to be about. We'll discuss the Zettel cause to effect model and some production flow charts that flow out of that, and discuss the basic crew responsibilities. So here are the three phases of the production process. Okay, first we have the pre-production phase, and this is where you develop the initial ideas for what your show is going to be about. And there's different ways you can do this. As a group, you can do a group brainstorming session, or you could, as an individual, follow the form of clustering to nurture ideas. And we'll go to a couple of panels that explain more in detail what brainstorming and clustering are to help you come up with ideas for your production. During this pre-production phase, you define the target audience, and this is most important for any sort of production that you do, whether it's something as simple as branding on Instagram to doing a big major film project. You must define your target audience. Who exactly is this message tailored for? And then you select your cast and crew. You gather audio and video that you're going to need in your production. All right. Then during the production phase, you record your broadcast or you broadcast it live over a transmitter. And then you might even have a post-production phase where you can assemble some shots, like maybe you did that in sequence or out of sequence, you recorded out of sequence, and then you can assemble the shots. You can record and just adjust some audio and correct some minor mistakes. The old adage is that we're going to correct it in post only works so far. So you can only really correct minor mistakes in post-production. So you want to make sure that you get all of your shots and all your audio and all of the things, all the takes that you need before you go into post-production. Because if you don't get the right shots that you need for your production, going back into the production phase after you've entered the post-production phase is costly. So make sure you get all of your shots before you end up in the post-production phase. Now, we talked about brainstorming and clustering, and these are ways to come up with ideas for your show. And brainstorming is the kind of thing that you might do in a group. When you gather a group of people around a table or in a conference room, or just, they can be informally gathered together in a room, and you select a person to be the moderator. And then you go around the table or go around your group and you discuss different ideas for your show, different kinds of themes, different kinds of things you might want to do. And just remember, when you're in the brainstorming mode, that all of the ideas are good ideas. Don't be judgmental, don't be critical about any ideas. The moderator's responsibility is that every idea is a valid one and keeps a record of all the different ideas. And there are some times when you might have a silent session, like the moderator may say, okay, now we need to come up with ideas for this part of our show. We're going to have a silent section here where everybody may write some ideas down or think of some different ideas. If you have a silent time, of course, stay silent. And then at some point, you'll open the floor up and everybody gets to speak. Record all your brainstorming ideas, and then at some point near the end of the brainstorming session, you can group your brainstorming ideas into, okay, so here's some ideas that we can use for the open. Here's some ideas that we can use to illustrate this particular point. Here's some ideas we don't know what to do with yet, but we're going to hold them off here, that sort of thing. Okay, so you organize your ideas. Another way to get ideas is by clustering. And what you do with clustering is that you start off with a main idea. So in this example, we start off with a car. It's the new model X7 car. And then you just think of different things about that car in little bubbles, and you can kind of arrange them around your initial cluster, and then after a while you can kind of see where different things link together, and then you can link them together. Like in this example, the one the one idea, the safety features that is just above the new model X7. We have some safety features, has racing seats that are quite comfortable and they're leather. And so this might be one set of ideas that when we're showcasing this car, we might showcase all the safety features. But then off to the right of that, we've got some performance things, like it accelerates fast, it's got a big engine, has a lot of power. So now we have a narrative where we can feature the performance of the vehicle. So you can see that you can come up with different kinds of angles for promoting this car, and these different angles may in effect be different 30 or 60-second commercials. One commercial for the new model X7 car is that it's a safe car. Another one is that it has great performance features, things like that. So Zettel talks about the effect to cause model. All right, and in our culture, we talk a lot about a cause to effect, right? Well, this kind of puts it on its, turns it around a little bit. In the effect to cause model, you start out with the basic idea of what your show is going to be about. Now, one of the examples that was given in some of the support materials for our class is that students are going to come up with a show called Recycle Now. Okay, and this is the title page for their proposal, Recycle Now. And the idea for Recycle Now is that we want to get students on campus not only to think about recycling, but actually put the recyclables in recycling bins located around campus. So that's our big idea. Our basic idea is a show about Recycle Now. And what we're going to do with this is have an effect. And the effect that we want to have happen is this desired effect. The desired effect is that we want students to be putting their recyclables into recycle bins located around campus. All right. Basic idea, it's recycled now. We want there to be some effective recycling done on campus. That's our desired effect. And then we go through a phase of, okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we decide the medium requirements, and this is the cause. All right, so we have the effect. The desired effect is we want to have recycling happen on campus. And what's going to cause that? Well, the medium requirements. What do we need to put our show together that's going to have this desired effect? Well, we're going to have a studio show, right, where we're going to have a host and a guest. The host will be talking about asking questions about how do we recycle, and the guest in the studio will be telling people what items that can be recycled, how they can go about it. But then we're also going to have cutaways on location, different places around campus where there are recycling bins, and we can actually have people report on where the recycling bins are, and what you put in the recycling bin. So there's going to be two elements to this particular production. One of them is going to be a studio element. Another one is going to be a location element, right? And so this is part of our cause. And then we process the message. And this is the phase of production where we actually put on the show. Okay, we put on the show, we go and do our location cutaways, right? And then we do our studio presentation, and inside the studio presentation, we also show those packages, those cutaway packages that we pre-produced, and put this all together, and we process the message. And these are our areas of cause to create the desired effect. All right, and what we do after our show is broadcast or our show is put together is we actually play it for people, right? We play it for our audience, and it has a real effect. What is the effect? And what we could do in our Recycled Now program is after we've broadcast the program, we could go around and do a survey of how many students may recycle. And then we can go to the recycling bins and see if there's been an uptick in the bottles and cans and papers and recyclables in our recycle bins around campus. And that's the real effect. So we have data from what happened before the show is produced, how the recycling bins are being used, and how the recycling bins are being used after the show. Has there been a real effect? And if there has, then we know that our show had that desired effect. And if there hasn't, then we need to go back and figure out what it is we need to do to get that desired effect. So that real effect is kind of that feedback loop that lets us go back and say, did we get the desired effect? And if we did, we're good. If we didn't, well, then we may have to go through the process message a little bit, adjust it a little bit more to get the real effect that we want. Now, there are some flow charts here that get us through pre-production. First, we start with the basic idea, right? And in that idea phase, we come up with the program objective. We want to get students to recycle more and use the recycling bins around campus. And our angle is going to be in the form of a talk show, right? Well, it's going to be in the form of a talk show with some packages, some cutaway packages that we pre-produce, put in there demonstrating how to use the recycling bins, right? And during our pre-production phase, somebody has to evaluate, well, is this worth doing? And if so, is it doable? Is this an idea that we can put together? And if we pass those questions successfully, then we can form our script. From the script phase, we then go, the script gets written and then goes to the producer, who will review the script, maybe make some slight adjustments and see if the things that are doable that we're going to do for the script will fit into our budget. You know, what kind of medium requirements we're going to need, the hiring of personnel, renting of studio equipment and camera equipment, things like that. Goes from there to the director, who also may make some adjustments to the script, but the director then will hire the talent, like maybe our talk show host and our expert, who's going to be the expert in studio, and then also who is going to be doing the man on street, as they call them, the MOS, right, part on camera. And then the director might also work with an art director who designs sets and the look of the show. We may have a floor plan where we actually do a floor plan of what's going on in the studio and a storyboard about what the pictures are going to look like, what camera movements are going to look like, what transitions are going to look like. The director will also go on from there to hire the technical personnel, the video switcher, technical director, the audio people, the server people, any graphics people and camera people, and so on. And the facilities and equipment, make sure that we rent, check out, have available the types of cameras and microphones and all sorts of different equipment, tripods, lights, things that we're going to need for our production. The director's basic responsibilities in this effective cause model is to translate the script into specific video and audio images. All right, we can get into the weeds about what the director is going to be doing, it's calling shots and directing talent and things like that. But the overarching responsibility of the director is to translate this script into specific video and audio images. And this is done with help from writers and storyboard artists, and eventually through the cast and crew that's going to help the director tell the story. The producer's responsibility is to nurture this idea through the pre-production and sometimes through the process message, the production stages, all right? And the producer will help prepare the budget, oversee the hiring, and through the hiring process, and through the associate producer, the producer's assistant, they can devise a production schedule. You can see on the left of this panel that we have a budget. So we're already working on a budget for our show. And on the right is the program schedule for a particular day. And basically, our crew's responsibility are these. These are the non-technical production personnel. Okay, we have the executive producer, and this is the leader for one or a series of productions. Okay, in the case of Recycle Now, that might be a one-off, but let's say we have a series. We're working on a show series. The executive producer would be the producer for the whole series. Then we have a producer, and the producer might be the producer for an individual show. So if we're dealing with a 12-season series, we may have a different producer for each show, or we may have a producer for the whole series, an executive producer who is in charge of multiple seasons. And then the line producer or daily supervisor, that would be the producer in charge of that production for that day, like maybe a specific episode, and maybe we have a line producer who's in the studio, and we also have a different line producer who's producing in the field, and those would come together and work with the producer for the episode, and that producer works under the executive producer. We also have associate producers, assistant producers, and they assist the line producers, the producer and the executive producer. And production assistants can also help. So you see, we have a whole series, a whole hierarchy of different producers who have very specified kinds of responsibilities. And then we have our director who directs the talent, directs the crew, translates that script into video and audio images, right? And there is an associate director who assists the director in telling this message. Now, we also have some other non-technical personnel on our list, and they are the talent. And talent can be one of three different things. There can be an actor. So if you have an actor, and an actor is non-gender specific anymore. We don't call them actors or actresses. It's actor is gender neutral, right? And an actor performs a dramatic presentation. We can have a performer, and that is thought of as somebody who's not being dramatic. So maybe we have dancers, or we have somebody who is our talk show host. That would be our performer. And also that would be in our Recycle Now, it would also be the expert that is brought in. And then we also may have an announcer, an on-camera or off-camera announcer who announces the show, announces credits and opens our show. The writers, who help write our show, also our non-technical production personnel. We could have an art director who's the leader for different design aspects of the show, what the show's going to look like. And we have our music director who might do the show open, might figure out what the theme song of the show is going to be, and the open and the close. And maybe we even have different bumpers for when we're going in and out of some of our cutaways. A choreographer, if you have any dance parts of your shows, you may have a choreographer. And then you also will have a floor manager. Sometimes this is called the floor director. This person is the liaison with the director up in the control room. The floor manager manages what's going on in the studio and is the leader in the studio, but is connected via the production line with a PA to the director and the director's calls. And there might be other floor persons who assist the floor manager. These would be grips or stage hands. And then you could also have costume designers who might help if you're doing a dramatic presentation, exactly what kind of costumes people are going to be using. Even if you're not doing a dramatic presentation, a costume designer might help you come up with ideas about what your show host is going to be wearing, what your expert opinion, your show's expert's going to be wearing, what kind of clothes that they're going to be wearing. And then if there's any props, you'd have a property manager. So for our Recycled Now, we definitely need some props, like some recycle bins, and we're going to have some papers and plastics that are going to be recycled. So those would be some of our props or properties. Now, as far as technical personnel that you might have in your shoot, you might have a chief engineer who'd be the chief of all the technical personnel, equipment, and maintenance. So this is the engineer who makes sure all the cameras are running, all the servers are running, all the equipment is running, all the lights are running, all of that equipment can happen and work, and then troubleshoots in case something goes wrong during your production or during the pre-production phase. The technical director sits next to the director typically and runs the video switcher. All right. So we call this is the TD for the technical director. They help set the shots with the director and do the video switching and transitions. The lighting director will do the studio and field lighting. Studio lighting can be very specific, but also in the field, you have different challenges for lighting. And so your lighting director will help set what is going on there and deal with specific issues according to lighting. Your camera operators, in our studio, we have a 3-camera shoot, so we'll have 3 cameras, but on your cutaways for your packages, sometimes you're going to have field cameras too, and so you'll have a camera operator for that, right? And maybe you do A and B roll, so you may have 2 cameras running in the field. You know, there's different kinds of responsibilities that can happen there. You have your video operators. The video operator, sometimes this is done by the chief engineer. They shade the camera, meaning that they get the cameras to match up so they're all seeing colors the same way and seeing black the same way, and that the cameras, when you're doing a 3-camera shoot, all match in both color and luminance, brightness. All right. Then you have your video record operators. This used to be a videotape operator, but now we're recording on servers, right? And so you have your server operators. They operate the video recorders. The audio people, there could be more than one audio engineer. They operate the consoles, the mics. They can also play the music. And your computer graphics, your character generator computer operator, your CG operator, and they make the numbers and the text and all the graphics that appear on your TV screen. And that's our process message lecture. You can go now and read chapters 1 and 2 in the book if you like. Make sure you've read them before you take the process message quiz.